Hello. Let's start.
Hello.
Hello. Let's start with a little bit about who you are and what you write before we get going.
Sure. I'm Eliana West, and I write contemporary romance. Um, my focus is really embracing diverse characters and worlds, and I myself am diverse, and so I want to see books that reflect the my experience, but also my community and my family. Um, so yeah, I'm also the founder of um, something called Writers for Diversity, and it's a platform for writers who are also striving to create diverse characters and worlds. And I teach classes and workshops on writing diversity.
Oh, yay. We will be sure to include that link in the description of the YouTube video.
Absolutely.
Yay. So can you walk us through your process of creating collages in notebooks for your story planning?
Yeah, sure. So let me just start with I'm dyslexic,
Hmm.
and I when I first started writing would go to all these plotting workshops, and people use spreadsheets and and tables and charts.
Hmm.
And for me, and the way my thought process and brain function works, spreadsheets just make me, I zone out. I go numb. They do not translate in my brain. Um, and over the years, I really discovered that I'm a hyper visual learner and thinker. And so um, I need pictures. I have to have pictures. And really sort of out of out of just that need for pictures, I
Hmm.
started creating a sort of a scrapbook, almost a journal. I'm also kind of a crafty person. I love arts and crafts, and so it was really a way to combine my artistic side and also give me something that I could work with as an author to go, wait a minute, what was that character's name again? What's going on in my story? And it's
Here
really
am
just
I.
evolved. It really has just evolved into my plotting journals, which I know a lot of people look at and they're just like, oh my gosh, you are like, it's too much, it's over the top. But for me, it I still every once in a while attempt to try to make a spreadsheet, and I like 5 minutes in, I'm like delete this.
Mhm.
I it, it just doesn't work for me.
Mhm.
I wish it did, but it doesn't. So I always end up going back to my plotting journal. Yeah.
That's awesome. So the overwhelm of the spreadsheets. I hear that a lot that I I am also that way. So when I do make spreadsheets, they have to be very simple. Like I delete all the extra space or else I can't function.
Yeah.
And I've kind of like brute forced my way into them, but I completely get the plus like the arts and crafts is just fun.
Yeah.
If we're
Exactly.
gonna write, we might as well have some fun with it.
We get to use glue and markers, and yay.
Washi. Yeah. So yeah, speaking of like glue and washi and all that, how do you gather the physical materials for your collages? Like, do you print things
Sure.
out? So what do you use?
Yeah, yeah. So I have examples. So I obviously glue stick and double-sided sticky tape are my go-tos.
Mhm.
I discovered we have a really great art supply store close to where I live, and perusing the store one day, I found these. It's gonna be backwards. It's just an artist drawing journal, very simple. Um, but I grabbed one of these, and this has been my go-to journal ever since then. This is what I create all my plotting journals in. I like the size. What I
Mhm.
really like is the weight of the paper.
Mm.
It's heavy enough that if, because I will, you know, plots change, stories change, characters change, and so sometimes I'll rip things out of the journal and put new things in, and the paper weight holds up pretty well. and they also expand pretty well. This is my big chunky boy. This is an entire series. There are about 10 stories plotted in this journal.
So you can show, unless you don't want me to show.
Oh no, that's okay. So there's
Okay.
one
Mm-hmm.
for each.
Ooh. I love all the different like ribbons.
They all have a different feel. They all have a different mood.
Oh, wow.
So it's expanded pretty well, and I still have some blank pages at the back.
That's lovely. And so good that you like can pack like a notebook full. I was wondering like, okay, is it one book per journal? But no, it looks like you can pack like a whole bunch into.
I can fit, so I usually have one journal per series. And you know, they just seem to, it just seemed, this particular brand of journal for me seems to just keep, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and but it's all in there, and so it works. And then I use so like I was just recently in Arizona. We're baseball people in our family, so we went down just for spring training.
Mhm.
And I always, when I'm at the airport, there's always like a rack somewhere in the airport of magazines, like travel magazines. And so, you know, I grab, you know, whatever, and I have an entire box of just pictures. This is my picture box that I
Oh,
can go through, character pictures and location. Also, you'll find I use like at the airport there was a map.
oh,
So this is gonna end up in a plotting journal.
oh, that's so good.
And yeah, again, I was going to show you example of using a map. I usually try to put like a map in the front and mark it, and just everything I think I need to know about my world
Mhm.
goes in the plotting journal. I love washi tape. I have a big bin of scrapbook paper that I use. Um, anything. I bought candy wrappers in my plotting journal. I have, you know, if I buy something at a store and I like the logo on the bag, I'll rip that out and put that in. Everything is fair game. That's the other thing I love about this, is that there's no rules. Like you can do whatever works for you.
Absolutely. Oh my word.
Yeah.
Okay, that is so cool. Um, and so creative to use like anything around you, even logos.
Yeah, so I'll show you. So for this particular story,
Uh-huh.
sorry about the lighting there. Let's see if I can make that a little better. Um, there's a moment in the story with that now or laters
Uh-huh.
are an important part of the story. And so I have literally like an hour later candy wrapper in my plotting journal.
You.
It's anything that will spark. For me, it's like sometimes I'll look at something and it'll spark a line of dialogue, or
Mm.
it'll spark a something in the character's backstory, or something, anything and everything might that
You
is a part of the
visualize.
story.
Mhm.
It all goes in the plotting journal. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I can definitely see how like especially with the maps and things like that, that will clearly help you visualize parts of your story. But how do you incorporate like those character and even plot to points that don't necessarily have a correlating image to them? How do you
So
how
that's where, if you notice, when I just held up my journal, I love 3x5 cards are my
Mhm.
are my like favorite thing in the world.
Right.
And I have different sizes of 3x5 cards. These are the little ones. And I jot little notes that go along with the pictures and the other elements. There's all sorts of little notes there about character development, who their friends are, snippets of dialogue.
Right.
And then to really take it to the extreme, I know this is over, like, this is like over the top, but just again, for me, this is what works for me. But I will have like, in this, I have a song, lyrics to a song. And then in this story, there is a hidden will. And so I found an envelope, and I actually wrote out the will, and then it's tucked away in the envelope. And here's the hidden will. And I go back and I go back and I reread it. I rewrote it a couple of times, but and what I ended up doing, and I know this is so, I feel a little like, I know some
It's
people are
not
like
over the
rolling
top.
their eyes going, oh my gosh.
At the top. It is great. Not over the top at all.
But I typed it out in a vintage font, and I threw a bunch of tea on it to make it look, I just yeah, that's it. I don't know how to explain it. It just, but it works for me.
Yeah, so it's definitely sparks joy for me. So
Okay.
I can see how you can see me like freaking out. So speaking of like the rewriting of things, do you revisit and update your collages as the stories evolve? Because
Yes.
like that one is in an envelope, for an example, easy to take out and rewrite. But what about like when
Right.
they're like glued in?
Yeah. So I actually bookmarked, like, this is a page that you can see like where I've ripped it all out and I'm
Ah,
starting over. I'm like redoing a page. Um, you kind of, it also kind of sparks fearless creativity, which is great in writing too, because you have to be willing to physically rip that moment out of your plotting journal,
mhm.
just in the same way you sort of have to rip that moment out of your story and
Yeah,
go, oh,
equally heart-rending.
I need to pivot, embrace the pivot, right?
Mhm.
Like I need to, I need to do something different. I need to
Take a
try a
hard
different direction.
left. Mhm.
Right, right. And sometimes that also means that like the way I design the page is different. The colors are different. The elements are different. The pictures are different. And again, that will, and as I'm actually physically layering the elements into my journal, I'm layering the elements in my brain,
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
that makes sense.
There was a great segment on PBS Sunday Morning this last weekend about the author of the book that inspired the movie American Fiction. And he was talking about um, he ties fishing flies. He's a fly fisherman and he ties flies. And he was talking about that as he's thinking while he's thinking. So, and I was like, yes, yes. Process of writing,
Mhm,
but sometimes if the words aren't flowing, I will stop and I'll work in my plotting journal, and
mhm.
I'm cutting and I'm gluing and I'm taping and I'm looking through pictures, but
It's
it
cooking.
allows me to process, things are marinating, I'm thinking about things in a different way, and so I love that he said he does the same thing with time flies, but like you're thinking while you're thinking.
Right. I've heard that before. I think like so many writers do that, and when they just like can recognize that that's what they're doing and what helps them do it best, that's like
Yes,
a golden ticket.
it is. It's and allowing yourself to do it,
Yes. Yeah.
because for a long time I sort of felt almost a little bit of shame
Yeah.
about my journals.
Mhm.
And I have had authors now and then be like, "Oh my god, this is you're wasting it, but you waste so much time, but you're not it." And it's recognizing, nope, this is my process. This is what works for me. I'm gonna make it as over the top and obnoxious as I want,
Absolutely.
has been really freeing. It's really freeing, and it really yeah, it helps me sort of settle in. And I think that was also part of a larger arc of just accepting. Um, I always knew I was dyslexic,
Mhm.
but I hid it growing up,
Mm.
and so it was also part of the larger arc of accepting being a writer with a learning disability and how to make it work.
I wish I could hug you right now. How dare
Oh, you're so sweet.
I can't imagine like even if you were taking a longer time than necessary, which first of all, not for anyone to say about you, but even if you were, we're here for a good time, not a long time. Like we should just, if
Right,
that's sparking joy for you, and how many people don't know what sparks so much joy for them. Like I
right.
love this for you. Please keep doing it forever.
Oh, thank you
As
so
long as it works.
much. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thank you.
Um, oh, I'm reading through my questions. That's what, if everyone's like, why is she not looking at anything? It's because I'm reading through my questions and making sure I hit all of
Right.
them. So obviously I love them, but do you share your collages with your audience, the plotting journals and everything with your audience in any
I
capacity?
I haven't yet. And so part of that was sort of honestly COVID, that I haven't really in, had an opportunity to engage with my audience
Right.
yet. So but I am thinking about teaching some workshops um that are actually hands-on, where I'll come and I'll bring my box of pictures and
Mhm.
magazines, and people can come and sort of um create their own plotting journal and figure out what works for them. One of my best writing besties
Mhm.
came over on Sunday, and we just hung out in my office. I was writing, but she sat down at my desk with all of my supplies and worked in her plotting journal. And it
Oh.
was really great, because we were as she was taping and gluing things in, she actually had this moment where she was like, this one is really textural,
Mhm.
and that's what I want my story to be. And I was like, yes, the
Oh.
power of the plotting journal.
Yeah.
You you think through those things. But it was also great to be able to talk through the plot as she was putting things in her journal, as I was working on my story. It was a really lovely way to spend a Sunday afternoon with a good friend.
Yeah, the like creative juices all flowing like a little artist.
Yes,
I've always loved the times where I've gotten together with writers or
yes,
any creatives and just like done art in the same room. That's always like a
yes,
wonderful experience.
yes,
Um,
yes.
So, okay, which one do I want to ask first? I'll ask this first one. So, could you describe a memorable experience where the plotting journal influenced the direction of one of your stories?
Yes,
Mm.
yes. And again, I bookmarked the page.
Cool.
I had a character that showed up in this series, and when and I don't want to do
Right,
a
right.
spoil. I mean, I can, but I try not to do a spoiler. But when I glued this guy's picture in,
Hmm.
I I wrote a question.
Hmm.
I it just and the minute I wrote that down, because I was looking at the picture,
Hmm.
his whole storyline, he's a secondary character, but his whole storyline like unfolded like a flower. It just, I could see it. Again, visual thinker. I went, oh, I know who this person is. And it was like I said, the minute I stuck his picture in the journal, I went, oh, yeah, I got this. I know.
Wow. Oh, I have tingles. Oh, that's so good. Oh, I'm so glad that that's something that happens for you like that. Like that's lovely. That's absolutely lovely. I'm
Yeah,
gonna now completely shift in the opposite direction of that question.
yeah.
Have you ever encountered any challenges or limitations when using your plotting journals? Like for example, the let me think of something. Like you can't you're finding that it's difficult to visualize, like when you go back and flip through them, you're like, I don't understand how this fits or things like
So for the most part, no. I've
that.
been pretty lucky, but I did just have this last week an instance where I stuck a picture in the plotting journal and I must have gotten distracted.
Mm,
I walked away and I'm looking at this picture now,
mhm,
going, who is where? I
mm,
know he's in the series somewhere.
mhm.
I now I've got to go through and I'm like going through the books in the series and doing like keyword searches, trying to figure out where the heck did I put this guy? So um that no, that was on me. Um, but for the most part, no, my plotting journals aren't necessarily organized by they're sort of free flowing. So I flip through the pages a lot,
Okay.
and maybe that is inconvenient. Maybe some people don't like that. You could certainly organize your plotting journal. I just find that mine has grown organically,
Okay.
um, as I have thoughts and ideas, and I kind of try to group stories together, but sometimes
Mhm.
there's overlap. Sometimes, so whenever I start a new book in the series, I sit down with my plotting journal and sort of almost read my plotting journal like a, a book
Okay. Okay.
and
So
refamiliarize myself.
okay, so no table of contents. Do you, if not a table of contents where you start with it and then book page one is this, page two is that, do you index at all? Like sort of the bullet journal method of like having the collections and then like, okay, once I've made it, now I go back and notate. No, not at all. It's all just
No,
receiving it.
because I'm always changing things and I'm
Yeah.
moving things around. And, for this particular plotting journal, the first book, the book that I was writing that was going to be the first book in the series
Mm-hmm.
ended up being the second book in the series because I had secondary characters who
Mm-hmm.
started talking so loudly that in order to shut them up, I had to like
Write them
put
first.
everybody else away and write them first. And that ended up being the first book in the series. Um, so that also shuffled things and moved things around and because yeah, so it's a little bit it might first hyper organized people, this would probably give you hives. I fully admit that. But again, for me,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I think because I've flipped through this so many times, it's like an old friend. I know where everything is in the journal. It's pretty easy for me to go, oh, I know what page that is,
Okay.
and flip through to that page.
That makes sense. That makes sense. You've been with it long enough, and all the pages too will look completely different on. So even if you're like
Yeah,
flipping through really fast, you'll be able to be like, oh, that pink is what I'm looking for.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And that thematically, I usually, as just as a writer,
Hmm.
I always, even if it's not in the book, I always assign a color, and
Mm,
either weirdly, either like a bird or a flower or a plant that's associated with that character.
yeah.
So you, like you said, I'll see the hint of pink and go, oh, that's May. That's May's page. Callie is yellow. Her flower is yellow roses. Like I know I can.
I love
Yeah.
that. I love sticking a symbol on things.
Yes.
I love that. That's another thing that sparks joy. Um, so have you noticed any differences in the effectiveness of your like the different genres? So do you find that this works better, or like if you could even speculate, like I could never do this with a what do I think this wouldn't work? This would work for anything. Or
It yeah. That's honestly, it's it. I actually I'm plotting a paranormal series that I'm gonna start working on toward the end of the year,
Uh-huh.
and it's great for
Yeah.
I've used it for the only thing I didn't do a plotting journal for is I did write a children's book this year,
Mhm.
and I didn't really need a whole plotting journal for something that is so short and
Yeah.
concise.
Right.
Um, so,
Wasn't called.
but yeah, yeah. But and then what's great is I take my images from my plotting journal and I use those to create Pinterest boards. So I have a Pinterest board for each book.
Okay.
Um, I can translate those images or even just the mood or the tone. Often when I am working on a cover for a
Mm-hmm.
book, I will send the cover designer images from pictures, pages from my plotting journal
Mm. That's
to
good.
set the mood and the tone. Yeah.
Right. No, that's clever because it's, cover designers being the more visual aspect. They'll already
Yes.
have something visual. Very good, very cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that sparked something. That sparked a question, but let me see if I can remember what it was. Oh, when you're out and about, um, do you take the plotting journal with you, or do you rely on your Pinterest boards as like the virtual plotting journal?
I usually carry a plotting journal with me. If
Hmm.
I'm working, if I'm deep in a story and I'm working something, if I have room in my luggage,
It's coming
um,
with me.
if I don't, I put together I have a little pouch.
Hmm.
And again, I have I have my Sharpie markers, I have index cards,
Hmm.
and sometimes I'll even bring a roll of double-sided tape, and and because I'll be traveling again, and I'll maybe find a picture or a scrap of something, and I'll put it all in the pouch, make a note, and then bring it home with me and put it in the journal.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So, do you have any tips or advice for writers who are interested in trying out these plotting journals or a collage or a mood board as a tool for their
Yeah,
development?
you know, again, the biggest thing I can't stress enough is that there's no right or wrong way to do this. And
Hmm.
so if you're out in a store and you see a journal and you're like, I like this journal, it can be a big journal, it can be a little journal, it can be any size, it can be any um and really, again, just like go for it. Don't be afraid. Um you can't do it wrong. And you can't, and if you don't like it, you rip it up and you do it all over. It's like knitting. I'm also a knitter, you
Hmm.
know. Sometimes you just look at it and you go, this is not working. It's not the right yarn with the right stitch combination. So
Mhm.
you what do? You rip it out, you frog it, and you start over again, right? It's not This is not make or break. This is not the end of the world. This is just, it's all part of the creative process. And if you're in your journal and all of a sudden you are like, things start clicking,
Like,
put the journal away and grab your laptop and write it down.
oh, yay. Yeah.
Start writing. You don't have to wait. They're not mutually exclusive. You don't
Hmm.
have to finish your plotting journal before you start writing.
Good tip.
That's I think another really important thing is my plotting journals, it's back and forth. And
Hmm.
I might spend the morning in my plotting journal and then the afternoon writing.
That sounds so lovely.
So there's no, um, I know some people like rules and are rule people. I Sorry, there's no rules here. You have
Make
to
your
just
own
you just
rules.
make your own rules. But maybe for some people that will help free them
Yeah.
creatively, because sometimes we do get so caught up in story structure and oh, am I hitting all the beats, and am I getting it right again, and sometimes you have to break out of that to
Mhm.
find your story or your character's journey or motivation. So don't be afraid to go against the rules sometimes.
All right. Do you have any final thoughts? Anything, any last things you want to say?
Um, I'd love to share my favorite quote, one of my two favorite quotes, and it's actually it's right there on that picture.
Mhm.
It's from Stacey Abrams,
Mhm.
and it's perfection is impossible, but space to grow is always possible. So give yourself grace,
Mhm.
leave yourself space to grow.
Mhm.
It's not about being perfect. It's about growing and evolving and sharing and being.
Oh, that's what a lovely note to end on. Okay, good talk. And finally, where can we find you online?
Sure, you can find me at elianawest.com is
Mhm.
really the easiest place to find me. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook.
Okay, great. I will make sure to list all of those links in the description, along with
Yeah.
sharing this with a blog post on our site. Thank you so much for chatting with me about this, Eliana. I am thrilled to have got this inside look, and I think your process is going to help like a lot of writers come out of their.
Oh, I hope so. Yeah, and if any writers have questions, you can reach out to me through my website. You're more than welcome to hit me up. I'll try to answer. Again, I'm a hyper visual person, so I'll probably send you pictures with like arrows going, this is how I did this. But yeah, yeah. Oh, I am a strong believer in writers helping writers
Mhm.
and encouraging and mentoring other people. So if I can help someone create a plotting journal, hit me up. I'm happy to talk to you about
That's lovely. We love those vibes too. Surprise, surprise.
it. Yeah.